Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. I'm Governor Spencer Cox from the great state of Utah, and we're so excited to have you here with us to talk a little bit about Utah and as an investment destination. I'm pleased to have with me today Ryan Smith with Qualtrics, and I'll turn the Zoom over to him to introduce himself, and then we've got some questions for you, Ryan. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, thanks, Governor. It's great to be on here. Anytime I get a chance to talk about Utah, I'm all in for that. I'm Ryan Smith. I'm the co-founder. I'm the executive chairman now of Qualtrics. We're a NASDAQ-listed public company. We've been around. Started Qualtrics in Provo, Utah, in the basement of my parents' home 20 years ago, which is kind of crazy. I was a junior in college, and it's been a pretty amazing journey, expanding from here to 25 offices globally. But Utah's home. Our headquarters are here, and this is where we've kind of created a movement and a category, and we've done it all here.
Well, Ryan, your story is incredible. The stuff that they write books about, and you mentioned starting in your parents' basement 20 years ago. Now, I want you to bring us up to date because Qualtrics was acquired by SAP for $8 billion in what was the largest private enterprise software acquisition in history. And I want to be clear, that's not just Utah's history, but that's everyone's history anywhere in the world. So fast forward 2 years and Qualtrics goes public at a roughly $24 billion market cap. Tell us more about what Qualtrics does, and if you could, just a little bit more of the Qualtrics story.
Yeah, so look, we started 20 years ago in my parents' basement. It was, we started with this idea that we could gather data and give people data that they didn't have. And a lot of your states actually use Qualtrics. All the universities in your states do. And it's just the idea that, look, the best data to run our organizations doesn't exist inside the four walls of our building. Like, we need to go out and run our organizations and our businesses from the outside in. What do our employees think? What do our customers think? And really bring them to the table. And for the first time ever, we've seen that just ubiquitously get used and absorbed by the world, especially during COVID. No, in a world where there's no playbooks, Qualtrics is the answer. If there's a playbook, then you can Google it, right? But when there's no playbook, the data doesn't exist. And that's, people are using us on how to get back to work, what their employees think, what their customers think, what the next products they need to launch are, and really defining the experience. What should the experience be? And oftentimes we design an experience, but the people who are experiencing it are having a different experience. And that gap is closed by bringing Qualtrics data in and experience data in and making sure that there's no gap there, that the experience we intend to have is actually what it has. And look, we created a category in 2017. We were 3 days before going public. You mentioned the largest private software transaction. There's a lot of M&A out there. It doesn't happen in the private market. It's really us and WhatsApp that have been there the last couple of years, because boards don't really write checks of that size without a public market marker out there. And it's a lot of convincing that you should pay $8 billion for a company that isn't public yet. And so 3 days before the IPO, we got a call from SAP, the largest software company in Europe. And they said, hey, look, we believe in you. We believe in Utah. We believe in what you're doing, and we want the category. And they came in an all cash deal and, convinced us not to go public at that time. And so we kind of backed out of the road show and traveling around the United States and said, hey, we're going to go a different direction. And the commitment was that they would continue to grow. They would continue to build Utah. They would continue to invest. And they absolutely did that. Everything they said they were going to do, they've done. And, the last year, the category of experience just kept growing bigger and bigger and bigger. And, we all sat around the table and said, what are we going to do with this? Are we going to just kind of treat it like everything else? Or this could be one of the biggest software companies in the world. Let's spin it back out, which hasn't been done. And we're going to take it public. And we took it public in January. And so as you mentioned, the value was much higher. It was a smart move for them. It's a smart move for us. And we're continuing to run. They're our largest partner. They own the majority of the company. And it's just, there's a lot of words or buzzwords about SPACs, this was probably the first one, right? It came out and we actually did it. We disrupted ourselves and took ourselves out. And that was, it's been unbelievable for everyone involved so far.
Well, Ryan, it's been an incredible ride, and it's certainly been fun to watch it happen. Congratulations to you and your team on the great work. Now, we're obviously here and having this interview for a reason, but I'm hoping you could spend a little bit of time talking about. You've been a cheerleader for Utah for a long time, but what about Utah contributed to your success and the success of Qualtrics?
I remember waking up in the Rosewood Hotel on Sand Hill Road as a young entrepreneur. And I was going to meet with Mike Moritz. And for those who don't know Sir Mike Moritz, he's one of the famous investors from Sequoia Capital. And he gave Steve Jobs his first dollar. He gave Larry and Sergey at Google their first money. And I woke up in the middle of the night thinking, he's going to make me move the company to California. And at the time, we had an offer, and this was 2011, to sell our company for $500 million. And there wasn't very many of us. And everyone we talked to said, get out, go sell. And I sat down with him and he said, well, don't we have the perfect litmus test right here? Here you have an offer. Or on this side, you can take my money and we can go invest in you. And you're going to show me what type of entrepreneur or impact you want to have in the world. And I'll never forget what he said next. He said, I believe you can do this. And then he said, I believe you can do it in Utah. And for me, that was it. And he didn't know what he was doing, but everything I have has come from Utah. I grew up as a son of a professor. Both my parents are academics. And, my father, I was born in Oregon. He taught at University of Oregon. Then he moved to Brigham Young University. I grew up running the halls of the business school. I started my company there. I met my wife in college there. We've raised our kids here. We started our company and grown it out of here. And most recently taking over the Jazz. Like, there's nothing I want more than to be able to show what you can do in Utah. What I love about Utah is you can change the world in Utah. There's nothing you can't do. And we've seen that. We all got together and created something called Silicon Slopes, which is one of the top 3 tech markets in the world right now. I think we've had, as far as IPOs and unicorn businesses, we rank up there with anyone, second to Silicon Valley. I think there's only 1,400 homes for sale in the state right now. You look at it and everyone comes here. Like, if you think about Hollywood, they're all coming into Park City. They're all skiing, the film festival. Look at our Jazz. We're #1 in the league right now. Like, there's really nothing you can't do. And I think it goes back to our heritage of how this state started and where we can build from. And back to Mike's words is there's really like no limit of what can you go create and where you can start from here. And as an entrepreneur and as a business leader, you just don't want the cards stacked against you. You're going to have to do it, but you want an even playing field, and that exists here. And that's what carries me. That's what carries me, man. Like, and there's days I wish that, I could focus on other things, but you know me, I'm all Utah all the time.
No, you are, and that's what's been so fun. And you're right. 20 years ago that wasn't the case, or at least no one was willing to try. And I think that's what we've seen change so dramatically over the past decade. You leading the charge, some of your fellow entrepreneurs and founders with Silicon Slopes and others who have really shown that you can do it here in Utah, and not just do it, but do it well, do it better than just about any place else. And it's been incredible to watch. Now, along those lines, are there other Qualtrics-like opportunities in Utah? I mean, what should international strategic buyers or financial buyers and investors know about Utah now?
Yeah, like we have this term that's success breeds success. And, investors, for the most part, I'll be honest with you, they're pretty risk adverse. They don't like going into the unknown. If you look at Sequoia, for a long time, they wouldn't invest outside their 45-mile radius in Silicon Valley. Once they invested in Utah, they have no problem investing again and again in Utah. Well, if you looked at the boom, we have all of the tech ecosystem and venture capital world wanting to write checks into Utah. Billions of dollars of checks have been written in, and that's coming. And so a great example of that was this last year with the purchase of the Utah Jazz. Here we have a basketball team, and it really has never been for sale before. And I know you're a big Jazz fan, and I made 2 phone calls. I made a phone call to Silicon Valley with the top range venture capital firm, and every one of their partners said, we're in. And I made a call to Sydney, Australia, with one of the top tech entrepreneurs in the world, my friend Mike Cannon-Brooks from Atlassian. And he said, I have been coming to Utah to do tech. I'm in. I made 2 phone calls. And we walked into the NBA and said, we're ready to go. Everything's lined up. And that is what happens as a benefit of all the work that has been done. And so if I look at the ecosystem that's coming out, we all got together, created Silicon Slopes, mainly 4 or 5 companies. And the next generation has now been and already happened with 10 or 15 companies. And we're seeding new companies who are employees that we have hired and branched out and have already created billion-dollar companies. And so similar to what happened at Stanford University, where Google and others have started out of there, and then other groups have spun off and success has bred that success, it's well underway. And so it's here, and the world knows. And so I think that if you look out at the investment opportunities, and then if you also look, we probably have one of the youngest demographics in the country. And if you look at the growth and the migration here, where people saying, whoa, I can have a yard and I can ski within 30 minutes of living in downtown, this is amazing. And work now because tech's here, it's just going to continue to compound. And so it's been great.
Well, you mentioned the young workforce, and I think that that's something, just today, actually, I was meeting with some major life science companies that are looking at expanding outside of the Boston area in a big way, closer to the West Coast, and Utah's their first choice. For all the reasons you mentioned, but also knowing that they are going to have a workforce investing in the long term, right? 5 years, 10 years, 15 years from now, Utah has that distinction. Now, all right, Ryan, so here's the thing. A lot of people are successful. They sell a company, they have an exit, something happens. They buy a house, they buy a car. You buy an NBA franchise, and not just buy a franchise, but first year, and they have the best record in the league. What's it been like, if you don't mind, the experience that you've had? Obviously a different year. We're just getting fans back into the building in a big way, but the impact, you talked a little bit about that, and of course the phone calls you made to make that happen. But what's it like being part of one of the smallest groups in the world? There's just a handful of these franchises, and to have so much success this year.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, it's been a tough year. I mean, if you look at, the work that everyone's had to do just to keep the game going, right? It's unbelievable. And then coming in from tech, I mean, the one thing that Adam Silver told me is like, Ryan, like, don't lose what you already know, right? Like, don't check that at the door. You're coming in, and, I have run a pretty large organization here. But I've never run an organization where everyone cares about it. No matter where you go, the world cares about it, or what happens at nights on the front page of every paper every single night. And it's globally. There truly are 100 million fans out there, if not more, because I feel that, right? That being said, I took over, and I think it's really interesting. I took over for the Miller family. And I don't know many people who care about Utah more than I do, except for the Miller family, right? And, it didn't go into an auction. It wasn't bid up. It was Gail Miller sitting down with me after being a partner for 5 years, and her watching my wife and I, and basically saying, Ryan, this is for sale to you guys because you'll carry on the legacy of this state. And that's a mantle that you have to carry. And so for me, it's the first thing I told all my partners. This will never be for sale. This is a community asset, and we are going to leverage it to do good. And I tell everyone around, this is the largest nonprofit that I've ever been a part of, because we're going to put everything we can into building the state. And there's not a bigger platform than the NBA. And so, and we want to win. We want to win. Nothing builds it more than, going after a championship. And we're pretty set on trying to do it that way. And I think it just adds to the next phase of this, of why not Utah? And back to Mike Moritz, I believe you can do it here. If we can do this here, we can do that here, right? So I think that is truly the goal and the destination, and also using this platform to change lives. I mean, we're doing a scholarship for every win this year, 4 years of room and board and tuition for an underprivileged and underrepresented minority. And we already have 40 wins. That's 40 kids going to college that wouldn't have gone to college. And it's all paid for. And I've had a chance to see the videos of these kids and where they come from. I mean, what an amazing use of a platform. And so I think that's where it's at. And look, I'm in year one. I mean, I can't imagine what the Millers have gone through for 35 years. I feel like I've got fresh legs right now to go in and do some of the heavy lifting and really lean in. But to be able to take over a franchise like the organization that the Millers built, no one gets a chance to do this. You're always taking over a franchise that there's stuff wrong or this is what's going on. I mean, they do everything right, first class. And that's been a pretty cool experience.
Well, you are using this as a platform. You mentioned the scholarships. You're also using it as a way to fight cancer, which I know is a big deal. Raising money, the Fight for the Fight initiative, which has just been incredible over several years and so different. And I always try to tell people that's what makes Utah so different and so unique. There are lots of places with successful companies and business people, but here there's this ethos of giving back and building community. That's what Silicon Slopes has done. That's what you've done at every step of your career. We're so grateful for that. I know we're about out of time. It's time to wrap up. We've talked a lot about tech. We've also seen, of course, just incredible investments and successes in life sciences. Recursion recently raised $200 million in Series D for new drug discovery. We've got Northrop Grumman, a $13 billion contract managed here in Utah for the ground-based strategic deterrent project. We've got big clean energy things happening with Mitsubishi, Hitachi, and Magnum development, 1,000 megawatts of clean energy storage here in Utah. We're also the most diverse economy in the country. Most people don't know that. I'll give you the last word. Anything that you would say to investors, whether in tech or out of tech, that are looking at Utah?
You mentioned that it's a little different here. And what's different is when we went after Silicon Slopes, we all sat around and said, we're going to put our logos on the table. We're actually going to put our logos on the table, and we're actually going to, on our press releases, write Silicon Slopes, Utah. And we're going to put our own egos in the middle, and the tide will truly rise all of the boats. And that has trickled down to all of the companies. And I think it's been what's going and will and has made Utah a special place. And that's the spirit of doing business here. And it's pretty cool when people at some level are rooting together for you. And they want to know, as opposed to everyone believing that you jumped over the fence and took the apples out of their backyard. That's not what we have in Utah. We have a bunch of people that want the success stories. And that starts with government all the way down to all of the other resources that are provided. And us who have been fortunate enough to have success, we will continue to lead out and show people that that's what it's about. And that's actually what true legacy is about. And I think the Millers have showed that to me, saying, hey, here's our baby, take it.
Well, Ryan, thank you for sharing those thoughts. Again, congratulations on all your successes. We're cheering for you. We're certainly cheering for the Utah Jazz, and we look forward to more great things to come.
All
Congratulations.
right, Governor, you're the best. All right, see you.